Yamatara Jabana Salagam. Om Yamatara Jabana Salagam. Om Yamatara Jabana Salagam. Love and light to the north, may the north be hallowed. Love and light to the east, may the east be hallowed. Love and light to the south, may the south be hallowed. Love and light to the west, may the west be hallowed. Love and light to the great below, may the great below be hallowed. Love and light to the sky, may the skies be hallowed. Ooh, ooh. Love and light to our hearts and the hearts of all humankind. May our hearts be hallowed. Ooh, ooh, It's been a long time since I've been in nature, and I'm so happy to be here at one of my most favorite places in Buffalo State Park, Minnesota. And behind me there's a frog pond. You might hear the frogs singing. And I was here a few days ago and I had a very eerie experience right here where I swear I saw a white wolf. So I've kind of camped back out here with some sacred offerings as I have this Nancy Drew hunch that it's really just a magical being here. So I wanted to share some of the full moon report that I've done a little bit of studying on and sleuthing on, and share what I am seeing in the stars right now. It's been a long time since I've done an astrological forecast. I've had a lot of intense life things happening and have needed to pull away from my business to focus on my family a little bit more. So this full moon is going to be on Friday at 12:34 p.m. May 5th, 2023. And this is a flower moon. And if you are in Fargo, North Dakota, at this time, I will be teaching a hot yoga class during this full moon, which is also an eclipse. So it's going to be a pretty powerful time, and I will do something extra special for my class this Friday at noon if you want to join us. So the sun is at about 15 degrees in Taurus, and the moon is opposite in Scorpio. The sun for this full moon event is conjunct Vesta, sacred fires, sacred priestesses, lineages of light, Christ light, these kinds of energies, and Uranus, which is just a few degrees beyond the sun. So this could bring a lot of electrical sacred energy to Earth. The eclipse is, while the sun and the moon are making a grand fixed cross. for the full moon. So on my chart here, you can see that square, and it's in the fixed sign. So it can really feel like you're just being nailed. And Pema Chodron talks about the experience of being nailed as those moments where there's nothing you can do. You're just nailed by life. And those are the moments that teach us acceptance of what is. And we may have to face our resistance to those things. The fixed signs point to that which is eternal. So an eternal cross. With the eclipse, that fixed energy is going to get like a release. It's going to be like a snapshot. And if there's karmic knots or intense ties, the eclipse is going to offer a moment, like a stress test to our life in terms of maybe what we've been seeing as fixed and what's not so fixed, and seeing more clearly where we are truly nailed, which could also have to do with our own karma. Seeing really clearly the consequences of our own actions and taking responsibility for it, and doing our dharma, our work to make amends and repair and find that true joy of the soul again. So these things can teach us from the pain how to find the medicine. So the grand square is with Black Moon Lilith in Leo at about 14 degrees Leo. And this particular aspect of Leo, the Sabian symbol is a human soul waits for an opportunity for expression. The degree that the moon is at in Scorpio 15 is children playing around 5 mounds of sand. So this has to do with naivete and wonder and the innocence of children who know how to play. The number 5 can point to things that are very hard and challenging, and yet the human spirit, the human soul, can see the truth of those things and still find delight in the beauty. On the other side of the Grand Cross in Aquarius is the most fortunate path for this event chart, in particular for in Moorhead, Minnesota. And this degree on the chart is across from Black Moon Lilith, and this one is a businessman at his desk. So a real hard look at what is the work that we're doing, the nature of a businessman to get things done. Taylor Swift, get this off my desk. I don't know. What are we focusing on in terms of that businessman? What is the work? And then that's squaring the sun and Vesta and Uranus. Mercury is also hanging out with Vesta. Mercury's in retrograde, but it's just 1 degree from Vesta right now. So Mercury is the priest who is reviewing sacred electrical fires. This could be a healer, a magician, a Christ figure. So those are the grand fixed square points in the chart. And 15 Taurus is a man muffled up with a silk hat. And this degree has to do with expression of self. So there's the fixed points have some levity to them. The human soul awaiting an opportunity for expression. A man in a silk hat expressing self. Children playing on mounds and naivete, and then the businessman in fixed Aquarius. Makes me think of, how do we do a business that we love? How does business honor the soul? How does the work we do honor and protect the innocence of children? Where do we give space for our expression of ourself, which is, in our culture, we talk so much about narcissism. I think narcissism is like a growth step when there's been a lack of healthy mirrors to the soul. What is it to express the soul? It is the self, the deep self, the capital S self, is beyond that narcissistic entanglement, because it includes that deep knowing of self, the knowing of one's karma, the knowing of one's dharma. And the acceptance of what is. Other features of this event chart: the midheaven, that point which is right over the sky, is a degree 3 Taurus, leading to the heart of desire. So that point right above the sky at this event, at this eclipse, is, what do you truly desire? So there may be like a clearing of the air from the Maya of what you think you should desire, what you were trained to focus on, what somebody else's values were, to what is your soul's true desire? What leads to the heart's desire? And facing the ways in which we might be lying to ourselves or others about that. Because the spiritual journey is so inward, it often requires a disconnect, even if for a moment, from cultural norms. Carl Jung says, the price we pay to be in community with one another is neurosis. Every community has its own challenges, and the soul work is to really face the shadows. But we haven't quite realized that conscious community on Earth in a global way yet. Other features. Venus is at the very end of Gemini, and she's been reviewing these sacred partnerships and finding where we're out of balance and where there could be more humanity and beauty. She's squaring Neptune for this event. In Pisces, 2652 is Neptune, and 2756 is Venus. So I think of Aphrodite and her connection to Venus as the goddess of the sea, and this beautiful woman who emerges from a seashell. And Neptune is also being connected to Poseidon and the god of the water, even Enki, the masculine water god. So with there being a square between the feminine goddess of the water and the masculine god of the sea, we have some emotional storms happening here in the psyches of the male and female. sorting out just before Venus goes into Cancer, where she is exalted. And that will be bringing a lot of sweet connection to divine mother energy. Cancer is also a water sign, and Venus does very well in the water. Right now, she's finishing up those last degrees of air. Another feature is that Pluto is in retrograde now and squaring the midheaven of the event. So that point in the sky overhead, looking for heart's desires, Pluto is there with the fear that is all wrapped around our heart's desires and why we fear to really know our heart's desires, the ways in which we might unconsciously protect ourselves from joy or from love because we were let down at one time in our life, and maybe we stopped believing in those things, or we're afraid we'll get hurt again. And yet, deep in the heart is our true longing to be in union with love. So, another really interesting square happening is Saturn in Pisces is squaring Juno in the beginning degrees of Gemini. So this is also an area of the sky where the Pleiades are, the seven sisters, the beginning degrees of Gemini. So a sacred marriage with the Pleiades, squaring Saturn and Pisces structure and order with that water element. Saturn's been kind of learning to swim in a way. And this could be bringing up a similar tension as Venus and Neptune, the tensions between the feminine and the masculine in the emotions, the water. Both of these are sharing the same houses. So it's Pisces squaring the twins in Gemini. So consider some challenges maybe presenting themselves in the structures of your family, in the structures of marriage, in the contracts you've made between men and women, and how we see each other, about giving one's due respect to the other, about knowing one's terrain and one's strengths and weaknesses. Part of that making sacred community is knowing that one person can't do it all, and that we were designed to each play a part and hold a role. And where there's been out of balance, assuming power that one doesn't have, expect a correction in those places. What else? The vertex of this event, like a cosmic doorway that opens up, that brings a certain flavor of energy through. A dark archway and then 10 logs. The bottom, seeing the way ahead. It's a little eerie, Capricorn, going into the depths, but seeing some structure as you go into this deep, dark place, like going into Pluto's underworld. The vertex is also five is making a trine with the North Node of Destiny, that destiny mark in Taurus. So doing that inner work of going into our underworlds, facing the structure of the underdeveloped parts of our psyche, things that might still be unaware, recognizing that there is too a pattern here when we can see ourselves clearly. This deep inner work is trining humanity's destiny right now. So a wonderful time to just take a break and pull back at these full moons and new moons, to use the 3 days around the new moon for purification by the light, to to do journaling, to sit by a fire, to work with the sacred elements. These are all very healing things that we can do at this time. Another interesting feature is that Medusa asteroid is right next to Chiron asteroid. So the wounds of Medusa, I have a little friend coming to spy on me. It's a little chipmunk. Hello. So the wounds of Medusa, Chiron's 1734 Aries, Medusa's 1750 Aries. So, you know, she's also connected with Poseidon, the god of the sea. And in the myths, there's different variants of all of the myths, right? One of the ones I like is that they may have secretly been in love, Medusa and Poseidon. And it may have been a time when the priestesses were moving from practicing embodying the children of the gods to embodying human children. And that was a big taboo, a danger, a falling of consciousness. And it could represent the shadow side of Athena is Medusa. And so maybe this is pointing towards a kind of sacred marriage of the feminine beauty. If Athena is in the city with consciousness and with the men who are ruling the city, then Medusa is her opposite, who's deep in the emotions, deep in the water, like monsters. Another version of the Medusa story is that she was killed by her own sisters because she was attracting too much attention. And this can point to the way in which women kill other women and how we fix the gaze of death upon other women as a way to scapegoat the patriarchal gaze. That there was a danger for being too beautiful, that there was punishment, that what was most beautiful was turned into something that was most grotesque. It can also be another story about falling and the sacred falling into the profane. Medusa is the madness of the embodied feminine experience, being demonized for simply being a woman, the rage of women that's often suppressed. And Mars has been squaring Chiron and Medusa. So at this point, Mars is just a few degrees at 21 Cancer, and Medusa and Chiron are at 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So we just went through a review of those aspects of the wounds and war. Mars has to do with being a warrior, and Medusa had a lot to do with war as well. She was used as protection on shields and armor, and she was said to have magical power to both heal and destroy. And Mars is a warrior through an age, but his true nature is to be spring. Aries is the first house of the spring, and his true nature is to be a flower. So consider how necessary it is for those fragile things, so beautiful, very feminine, that need that hard shell like an armor, that turn into a different face, that disguise in order to protect. When our true face is revealed, behind the shell, the beauty. Another facet is that I talked about Juno squaring Saturn. Juno is actually making a trine with Pluto. And this could represent the marriage of the deep goddess points to the myths of Hades and Persephone, and the marriage that Persephone has with Hades, and a transitioning of the seasons, Beltane and the sacred union of the flower maiden and the green man, and these energies of the deep earth coming into holy union and balance. Namah Shivaya, balance of all the elements. So, Mars is also making a trine with the moon for this event. So that's going to mean a lot of watery, passionate energy is going to flow very easily. And Mars rules Scorpio. So you could feel an expression of deeper power with Mars coming forward in this way, to that degree of children playing. So the power of innocence, the power of play, the power of moving in a very beautiful way. All right, I think that's the basics of the chart that I see, what I see in the chart. I'd like to consult the cards for a reading and see what the cards have to say about this full moon eclipse event. Now, when eclipses happen, we're in the middle of an eclipse cycle because we had an eclipse at the new moon, a solar eclipse, and then Friday is the lunar eclipse. And these will mark periods of great change. This is the very last eclipse in Scorpio Taurus, because the nodes are going to be moving into Aries and Libra, which harken back to themes of the Revolutionary War and a review of the founding of America and the red and the blue, what those actually mean. I saw somewhere recently in some esoteric teachings that the red and the blue actually represent the feminine and the masculine in their full potential joining together. So this last Scorpio Taurus eclipse could also have to do with the deep powers in which the United States has been built on, and a review of money, and a finishing up of an era, whether that's the Rockefeller era or whatever has been happening since the 1700s to this point now. We are definitely shifting into a new age, a new period of time with different values and different rules of this particular time. Creation works a little different in each of the different sections of time. So, eclipses will bring about major endings, major beginnings. All right, so asking my highest and best guidance. 3 cards for this weekend, for this full moon. What is the situation? Oh, they just popped all out just like that. Okay, here we go. Card 1 is going to be the situation. Card 2 is something to like take note of, but to grow away from. And then the third card is what to move towards. All right, so the situation. Oh, very Venus and Gemini, the reflective truth, seeing oneself clearly, seeing other clearly, seeing your own divinity, your own beauty, Also that innocence, the joyful playfulness, the butterflies, the flowers, the spring. A fresh way of seeing oneself and your own soul. Soulmates. All right, that's the situation. Advice to kind of beware of, be cautious of, learn from, move away from. Well, this is interesting. Solar portal. Yeah, we're gonna actually get, I think we're getting a ton of solar flares right now. And so be cautious when there's a lot of solar energy hitting the earth. You want to stay hydrated and rested. So be careful with all the solar energy coming through. You're going to want to rest, hydrate, and use this time to purify rather than being drinking a lot or out with other people or in large groups. If you can have some alone time to digest the solar energy, that's going to be a lot more helpful. And finally, advice to move towards, things to watch for, things to welcome into your life. The third eye portal. How that awakening and opening of the pineal gland, seeing the colors of blue and purple behind the eyes in meditation, having more powerful dreams, visions, clarity of mind, peace of mind, confidence, activation of your soul potential is the opening of the crown. Beautiful. Close with a final blessing and mantra. Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya, Namah Shivaya. May all beings everywhere, in every place this day, be happy and free. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. So much for joining me. Many blessings to you throughout this week and this full moon portal. May you receive the desires of your heart. Namaste.